Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your hosts Edward McQueen and April Garner.
Well, interesting week we had. Interesting week. You can see the promo just popped up there, but that was good. It was good. So we know what we're dealing with now. Good evening. I'm your host, Ed McQueen. Welcome to WCM Live. And of course, co-host my sister, April Garner. And so this is an interesting week, like I said. So April, we're going to kind of like kick it off. I had the opportunity to do was to interview, as this before I say anything as a caveat, this is a paid political broadcast for the candidate. And I had the privilege of finding out what the candidate's platform is and what the candidate's intent is regarding the promotion of the facilitating of what Conway needs, and put it that way. So we had the opportunity to interview current mayor Barbara Blain. She said Barbara Joe Blain-Bellamy. So we're going to go with that. And it was interesting. So we're going to kind of like kick it off and give our audience an opportunity to see what the interview had entailed. And there may be a pause in there to interject some conversation and some discussion as to what may be of further interest to our audience. So that's the format that we decided upon this evening. And so we can kick it off, April, just start with the video. And again, there will be an interjection of discussion points or point discussion during the broadcast. Okay. So.
Yeah, so we do invite you to leave your questions and your comments. We won't be able to answer anything on behalf of the Honorable Mayor Barbara Blain-Bellamy. We will be able to convey your questions to her in preparation for a later broadcast. But if you want to leave your comments based on the video that you're seeing tonight, the video clips that we're going to share and the discussion that we will have, please feel free to do so. And before we get started, I just want to say, since she's the first one that I see on the comment stream, Verdell Beckman, watching from Columbia, South Carolina, thank you so much for joining us again tonight. I think she's with us just about every Tuesday night. And so we really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. And so, again, we're going to...
Isaac Beckman's family here.
All right. So we're going to play the reel, and again, we'll stop at certain points after showing clips along the way. And there are a couple of major takeaways that Brother Edward has pinpointed tonight that we really want to focus on, that include affordable housing, and also some of the more controversial topics that were kind of permeating throughout the community, which include the property that is the remains of the Whittemore Elementary School and Whittemore Park Middle School, right. And then everything in between. So get your pens, paper ready, everything, and let's make it happen. So, Brother Edward, I'm going to pull up the clip now, and then we'll see what we have. All right.
That you're going to showcase to our citizens in Conway.
Thank you so much. I haven't spent a lot of time defining something to call a platform, but I certainly do want to say a bit about some of the progress that's been made. Conway is growing so very fast, and we want to make that to our advantage. There are so many things that sit as a potential part of our future that are based on population numbers and based on per capita income. So right. Growth is really good. I think the greatest charge that I have as mayor is to assure that that growth is done within the realms of what we know about those environmental issues that still linger over us. Uh, there's a lot of water around. We live in the low country in South Carolina. We've been tremendously hit by weather events of late that were expected to happen every 200 years and are now happening every
Right,
year.
right,
And we just want to make certain that as uh, we have very little opportunity to control growth, we certainly want to use those things that are uh, within our toolkit to be able to make certain that developers are using certain practices, state of the art, current day practices, best practices to make certain that development. Um, I could never say that development won't have an impact on our environment, but to minimize that, certainly. People in Conway are enjoying more things to do, more places to eat, more places to shop. There are activities that are bringing us together as a community that I think is
yeah,
extremely important. Over time, what we don't need is things that polarize people, but rather those things that bring people together. So our festivals, whether they're put on by the city or if the city just co-sponsors them, all those opportunities to bring people in the central area with entertainment, with reason to smile, with opportunity to have a chat with a person that you didn't know
right,
before is certainly important to us. We have made great strides of late just in terms of taking some existing properties and restoring them and making them usable for another few years. Just before COVID, the city had talked about building a new city hall. We had certainly outgrown it space wise, just in terms of the number of offices we need. And there are certain safety considerations that could not be provided given those things that, because of historic requirements, we weren't able to change. But
right,
man has learned a lot about how to stay within a set of rules and make changes that are appropriate and that are good for a group. And so the newly restored and renovated Conway City Hall is just so fabulous to see. I don't have a clue how, without expanding the footprint of the building, we were able to, the experts who did the work, of course, were able to add 4, 5, 6 new offices. There is a considerably larger conference room to house staff and visitors for meetings as they need to be had in that building. And I think anybody who takes the time to walk through will be very glad with what has happened there. Um, our police department is expanding. Our recreational offerings are growing. Just one example is as our population ages, I don't know that everybody fully is aware, but the primary source of our growth is retirees from the north, which means that we have our population is aging very quickly. It's not like people like me getting older by the day, but generally speaking, when you consider the breadth of our population, it has more and more retired people. And retired people from the north like to play pickleball, for example, and in an attempt to be responsive to what the community singular wants and what people enjoy and get health benefits from. We've been trying to follow along in that vein. Smith Jones Park has had a closed pool for a number of years, not at anybody's fault, but the entrance of COVID-19, the backlag of being able to get work done by anybody, and the difficulty with getting parts and equipment has held up that project for a number of years. And today, there is on that property a space that's called the Oasis. It is set up like a Jamaican resort with the plantings and the artwork and a magnificent new pool that has drawn literally hundreds of children by the day to get a reprieve from the heat and get some exercise and learn how to swim. I could sort of go on and on about the various individual things, but I think in large part, we, well, one other thing I will mention is our fire rating with the Conway Fire Department is now at number one being the best possibility just in terms of a fire rating. It speaks to the quickness with which we get on the scene when there's an incident, when there's a structure fire, our ability to identify and locate water sources, the skill with which we get the fire put out quickly. And that's important, not only just to save the structures, but for homeowners and other property owners. In many instances, it reduces the premiums for insurance for buildings and other properties. So our our staff, city staff, has grown over 300 now. We are annexing property twice a month. We have city council meetings that often, and the physical spread of Conway has just been enormous. When just for an example, I've been on city council since 1993, at which time Conway was about 6 square miles. Conway proper, the city limits, and today Conway is getting closer to 27 or 28 square miles. With that growth comes responsibility, and so far we've been able to keep up with the responsibility. Before I just go on and on, I think I should wait to see if there's an area that you direct me to.
That part of the interview, Mayor Blain-Bellamy, I'm gonna call her Mayor B. Mayor B. She really laid out a lot of information that anyone could probably interpret as, positive progress for Conway in terms of dealing with environmental issues, the growth of the landscape, identification of who who encompasses or who's entailed in the primary source of growth, and everything in between. And so that was pretty comprehensive as far as the overview that she gave us in that first part of the interview. As you were listening to her, what were some of your takeaways from the things that she mentioned in that part of the interview?
Right. I thought it was very, very important that she did mention the part about the pace of the growth anyway, from 7 square miles or so forth of
6 square miles.
6 square miles, yeah, to 26. I mean that means
27 to 28.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. Well, in that vicinity. But I thought that was a pace of acquisition that is paramount to a lot of activity, and not just growth, because we can see the growth, but you kind of wonder if the investment for for a bigger budget is in play there, and then it wasn't just an out source of money to acquire these areas. I'm sure that their master plan probably encompasses something like the benefits and disbenefits of acquiring all that land from 7 square acres to square miles to 27. One has to think that it's a lot of activity that's been going on, and if as she has watched that growth, she must have had a lot of help from all of the different personnel that she said that grew up to. They now have 300, and that's important, I think. So I think that's great. You know, I'm for that. But later on in the interview, you'll see where acquisition of land that has been kind of contentious with different entities of Conway will be explained, and we can get our feedback from our audiences there.
Well, yeah, let's, and I definitely want to focus a little bit more on, this portion of the clip before we move on. But I thought it was pretty interesting that she noted that the primary source of growth are the retirees that are coming from the north. And a lot of times whenever we see new developments popping up, we're wondering, and, you've heard people say, where are all these people coming from? And, who has the money in Horry County
Right.
to be able to afford all of these properties?
Right.
And, if you take a look at least through Conway, I can't say all of Horry County, but, because I haven't seen all of Horry County, but, at least through Conway, and I would say, especially along that 501 corridor, if you turn down El Bethel and you turn, down other cuts along 501, more and more timber is being cleared, even off of 544, more and more timber is being cleared, and new housing developments are popping up, even in places where, you normally would not see a housing development. I remember, maybe a few months ago on 544 near that Carolina Lakes area, I was surprised to see a brand new housing development that basically has just popped up at the front of Carolina Lakes and on 544, right on the highway. And so, it's good that she answered the question, at least in small part, as far as, where the primary source of growth is coming from. And I think that it says a lot that people are moving to Horry County, and particularly to the Grand Strand area after they retire, which means that they're bringing a number of things with them. They're bringing, probably as retirees and coming from the north, discretionary income. They're bringing a certain level of, as you like to call it, intellectual property that's kind of rooted in their experiences up north. Absolutely. And so these are things that they probably want to see here in the South to kind of, continue in the lifestyle that they were accustomed to, but also, they're coming to the South because they want to experience the Southern way of living. Hearing that, for example, pickleball is a fairly new recreational sport that it's just popping up all over the place, and people are like, what's this pickleball thing? And now there's actually that form of entertainment or recreation that's being developed for these retirees. Right. To me, that signals that that primary source of growth is not slowing down, which is not. It's a good thing for Horry County. It could be a thorn in the side for Horry County if city and county officials aren't really keeping up with the growth that's happening. Our infrastructure is already worn out. Our roads are, they're heavily laden with traffic. And so I'm sure that, as mayor, those are the things that are constantly on her mind and the minds of our city council representatives as they work with community partners and, the state and whoever is involved with that to figure out how to meet the demands of all these people who are coming into Horry County. But it also, to me, signals that, what we're going to see is probably a reimagined Conway. And I can say that since Mayor Blain-Bellamy has been in the seat, Conway has had a facelift. there's a lot of wonderful things that have happened around downtown Conway. Lighting structures have been renovated. Businesses have come in that we haven't seen before that are adding to, the flavor and the personality of downtown Conway. And those business starts are, definitely healthy for our area, and hopefully that they will inspire current local business owners to either, work hard to meet the demands of all of these new people who are coming to the area, and also providing some upgraded services for the locals to enjoy, because of course we can't dismiss the locals, and being able to make sure that everyone feels at home and the locals don't feel displaced. One great thing that has happened along the way, where the J&J cafeteria used to be, it's now the Caribbean restaurant. And, that corner alone has new life with that building and the new mural and the outdoor dining and, all the things that have been added. And I think that those things are also appealing to a base of people who are probably used to seeing that up north. So it's good that, our present government officials, meaning the mayor and the city council, are actually embracing that. That's change, that's progress. And if it's not embraced, then, we won't see this growth, because I'm sure that, it all plays all of the decisions, the wants, the needs, the desires of those who are moving in, as well as, the desires of the locals to see some growth and progress. All of that is a part of that mixed bag of things that they have to consider along the way. So there are a couple of comments. Thank you so much for watching, Betty Gauze and Janet Lawrence Patton. Betty says they've started pickleball in Bucksport. Well, Betty, you're going to have to invite us down there to play some pickleball. I'd love to see Brother Elk play pickleball.
You'd love to see that, yeah.
So that we can understand what pickleball is all about. And then Janet Lawrence Patton says, that growth has also shown an increase or newness of diversity within areas. That's an excellent point. Diversity within areas of Conway that were not as diverse as they were a few years ago. And that is an excellent point. Not only just diversity in terms of, black, white, but culturally diverse. Even mindsets can be a part of that whole diversity equation if people are bringing in new ideas, especially if they're good ideas for everyone involved. Maybe they can come to show us how to continue to uplift the idea of diversity, equity, inclusion in the area. So it was good that she shared, those things with us as far as what's happening economically in the area.
So we have Bucksport. Miss Betty Gauze is always being innovative up there in Bucksport, and that's a vibrant community out there. And many thanks to the Fraser Center out there. It's been pretty productive. I believe it's been serving community quite well. But I do believe that the area of pickleball, it won't be relegated to one age group before it's over with. You're going to find some people of all ages enjoying pickleball before it's over with. I believe that.
Mm-hmm. What about what she said about the new the renovations that have happened at City Hall? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I was many parts I didn't know about. I thought it was being renovated. But first of all, the big talk was about a new City Hall before they moved into a temporary place, and then while waiting on the renovation. I thought the renovation was just a first step in waiting on having a new City Hall built, because I believe that was the original plan, I believe, and I don't know why it wasn't carried out. So that's as much as I know about that. But the one that was renovated, I've only been in there once since the renovation. I thought it did a pretty good job, but I would have looked for something that's kind of new. I thought, because that is in historic building, by the way.
Well, and she talked about the fact that, because it is a historic building, they had limitations. There are things they just could not do make the adjustments that they probably needed to make, but they were able to make enough adjustments to at least, add the 6 additional rooms and to enlarge that conference room or whatever. So, but that again, that growth in City Hall, the need to expand shows, growth in government as well, growth in city services and all that good stuff. So, it's good to know that, again, I like the word progress, that progress is being made and has been made, during her term. And then she also mentioned the festivals and things that are kind of central to the downtown area as far as entertainment and, other, restaurants and places for people to go, things for people to do and see. And she says, her comment was, they don't need things, or we don't need things that are polarizing people. We need festivals that bring people together. So hopefully, what we've seen in the past few years, there will be continued growth. And to, Janet Lawrence Patton's point, there will be more diversity in terms of who's, coming to the table to make sure that these festivals are happening in the way that they're supposed to, and that the expansion includes all cultures and, not just some of the typical kind of bandwagoning type of festivals that we've seen that haven't really always been executed the right way. There's definitely an opportunity. I see a lot of opportunity based on what she's saying. So she mentioned the environmental issues, and they'll always linger in a river town. Like she said, we have lots of water surrounding us, and
Right.
but making sure that the developers are using best practices with her words. I think that's highly important, because we certainly don't want the developers to shortchange anyone who's coming to the area, especially newcomers who aren't really familiar with the area, and shortchanging them as far as building in places that really are flood prone. So I'm glad that there's some kind of oversight there in terms of at least kind of watching out for what developers are doing as they grow. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, she explained them. She explained them well. I'm hoping that that how it was conveyed over can really be digested in a way that people understand that some of the things had to be done, and some of the things couldn't be avoided. Okay, but I'm glad she brought up the part about the part about I think the environment. We simply don't get enough talk about that, I don't think. But in environment, because so some people, that's just a brush off word. We got other things to do, than just talk about the environment. People trying to make a living. That's the street talk word to say about that. But I thought it was. I felt really compelled to applaud her really by receiving her explanation on that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was well done, and we can, again, I don't think we talk about it enough, but I don't know if it's perceived as being very attractive either to even talk about it, but we should.
Well, yeah, environmental issues should be attractive to everybody. I think it's just people kind of shy away from things that they don't know about, right, and they don't really understand as much. And so, your interview with her, I think, was a great opportunity for her to really shed light on some of the things that have happened under her term. And again, she's not just the mayor making all of the decisions. She's working with city council and other community partners to make all of this stuff happen, the various city services and all of that. And just kind of bringing to light some of the things that have happened, because a lot of people don't know what's going on in our area, and those things that are really kind of under a microscope or on the radar as far as what our city officials are paying attention to. So I think this was a very informative interview. At least this first part kind of gave us a great frame up for what has happened in Conway. What's on the horizon, and we're getting ready to hear a little bit more about that. So
in April, I think I think her narrative of that was broad, and I thought the attempt was being as simplistic as could be. Okay.
Yeah, she gave us an overview, just an overview.
This is an overview. Mm-hmm. So in that regard, we can't have enough of these type of interviews because sometimes it takes repeatability for things to sink in. Like the environmental issue, that really needs to be, just pounded upon, so that people can understand, that, that's a very, very important issue.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's continue the interview and, more of what Barbara talked about last night with you. And again, we'll remind everyone that the interview was a part of this broadcast, and her interview is a paid broadcast. We're just giving you commentary based on our review, not really a response to what she said, but it's more about, talking through the topics that were mentioned and giving some insight as far as, the interview is concerned. So we'll continue, Brother Edward. Here we go.
Here we go.
And most notably, it's Marine Science Program. And it's being reckoned with. It is to be reckoned with. It's competitive, and it's just another way that Conway is going very well across the nation.
Let me kind of bend a little bit. What and one of the issues, among others, and I'll ask about some others later on, but one is the lack of affordable housing.
Yes.
And that has produced an economy of renting because of a lack of affordable housing. Now, how the city can't be benefiting a whole lot with a lot of renters, right, as opposed to home ownership. Is that correct?
Well, the only benefit that affects the city, just in terms of whether the person who inhabits a home is a renter or an actual owner, is that the taxes are higher for rental property. That person who is making a profit by using his or her home or a home they own,
Right.
taxed higher if it is rental property. But you are aware, like everybody is, that nationwide and extremely suddenly, I have never seen such a heightened rate of rents move from, and I'm afraid to say, because again, you use the word affordability. What is affordable for one person
Is
be affordable for another.
right.
And there are national standards that sort of define affordability, but you and I are talking about an average person.
Yeah, you're talking about the economies of scale.
That's
right.
That we're talking about whatever average people earn. It is extremely difficult for a person who is making minimum wage, for example, even with 2 or 3 wage earners in a home, to come up with an amount of money that would allow them to pay upwards of $1,500 a month in rent. And now, I may have been complacently sort of sitting where I sit and not noticing this happen, but based on what I'm hearing from other people, rents moved up from an average 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment, decently prepared to house a family. The figures that I heard of a year ago were more like, right around $800 a month, $750 to maybe $1,000. That 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment today has suddenly gone up to $1,200 to $1,500 a month, and but without anything to supplement that for the renter. That same person who was earning $10 an hour is probably still earning $10 an hour.
Right.
But food costs, utility costs, gasoline costs, maintenance of an automobile, and rents have suddenly all just ballooned at the same time, leaving a lot of people in a bad place. We recognize that. I chose to go to a seminar just in July on the federal home land bank as an entity, and to learn about programs that they have to institute what is essentially affordable housing in communities. And I have some conversation going with some of those people now. There are local groups that have spoken of an interest to provide more affordable housing. There's no doubt that we need it. There hasn't been what we commonly call a housing project put up in or near this area in decades. Nor have I heard of any plan to do such. There have been several apartment complexes that have come up, and a few of them are income based, just in terms of determining the amount of rent that somebody will pay. But for the most part, they are out on the standard market. And if you can't afford to live there, then you just cannot afford to live there. But that is something that I am concerned about, something that I don't have an answer to, but something I'll continue to explore.
So I'm glad you brought that point up, exploring that. But what about forming a committee? Do you have those resources to form a committee or a task force to find strategies for to addressing the affordable housing issue? Do like grants? I'm thinking of things like grants that a city could get from the state or even the federal government once they find out the level of need for Conway. And because the Conway tax base probably contributes more to my understanding last time I read, contributes more to the state treasurer, I believe, than any other county, I believe. I could be wrong about that.
So that's debatable, but
yeah,
it wouldn't. I certainly see that could be true. Not the city so much as Horry County.
Right. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Horry County. Yes.
To do with the tourist industry. That has to
right.
do the dollars. When you get into touristry, there are taxes added to every. There are 3 or 4 taxes added to every hotel room, every prepared meal, gasoline. I mean, the list goes on and on. And in that sense, as you know, with the quarter of our county geographically being the Grand Strand, there's no question that we add to the tax base for the state. There's always been conversation about whether or not Horry County gets its share. There's always been, as long as I can remember, discussions about how consistently areas such as Greenville, Charleston, and Columbia tend to benefit the most from when it comes to roads and infrastructure from South Carolina's tax dollars. But I can't say that I'm in a position to know how much that is true. I just know that things tend to come more slowly here. As I recall, and I do believe I'm right about this, I got a driver's license in 1967. And in 1967, Highway 501 was pretty much the 4-lane road that it is today. Now, there have been some improvements here and there, some left and right turn opportunities, but there's still a 4-lane highway that is from what is Conway sometimes called the gateway city to the Grand Strand, but it interferes with everything that is important to us. And convenience is the last of them. When you consider having a health emergency and needing to get to our hospital out on Singleton Ridge Road, all it takes is a fender bender on the Main Street Bridge or on 501 to deter you.
Backs up everything
To that hospital in time. And similarly, getting an ambulance to a person in need, getting a fire truck to a person in need is hampered by that traffic that is sitting still. And the rest of you know as well as I that in times past there was a tourist season. It started about the 1st of June and it ended like today, Labor Day, or thereabouts. And that is no longer the case. I've seen more cars coming in today than I've seen all summer, because there is a childless family group that starts coming in for the end of our summer season. It is warm here well into November, and people come. We are growing just in terms of our being a destination for Thanksgiving and for holiday shopping and for family gatherings.
Right.
And it's gotten to the point that on a Tuesday in February at 11 o'clock, it's your best chance to drive from Conway to the Grand Strand, but there are delays even then today.
Well, I kind of look at that with a double-edged sword. To me, on one hand, that means that commerce is moving, and I think it's contributing in a positive way, to the business on the side of the road. But the other one, on the other hand, it's become frustrating where the working class trying to get from Conway to Myrtle Beach to meet his or her job, and back and forth, coming back from Myrtle Beach,
That's
that's
hours and hours of commute in a week. Now, your question was more about housing. I didn't mean to
right.
just
That's
say
okay.
from that, but the city of Conway is involved in partnership with a number of groups that whose goal is to lessen homelessness, to make certain that there is more affordable housing, and so the efforts are in place, and the movement is slow, but it's not something that we're blinded to by any stretch.
Okay. I think we need to.
Wow, great. Can you hear me? I can't hear you, April.
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, she brought up some really good points there about the lack of affordable housing, and all of it, of course. We already know what inflation is doing to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And affordable housing, yeah.
Yeah, so as you spoke with her about that, what was your great takeaway from what she was saying in terms of the lack of affordable housing and what's happening in our area?
Well, it is created, just like it has created around the nation, sort of a snowball effect. And in other words, when a community or people don't have affordable housing, then they can't do other things, because you got to have food, you got to have shelter, and then food. So they're not sustainable themselves with working at a minimum wage, say of $10 or $11 an hour, and without having some supplemental source there, and to have affordable housing. But when housing costs gets beyond the supplemental plus what you're making as minimum wage, then that's where it is the state or the federal government has got to really step in, because you just can't make it then. Okay, if housing is still not affordable after you're making $10, $11 an hour, and you're getting a supplement from whatever government entity it is to make sure that you can afford a house, or at least a rentable house, then you're stepping on almost a disaster there. But she laid out some things some avenues that they hope to take, but she also listed the obstacles that were in the way, and some of these things aren't involved. I don't know how to. I wish I had asked some more questions. I didn't. I just was thinking at the moment about some more solutions or whatever. Have they been having discussions at the city council, not at the city council meetings, but at a gathering of the executive council maybe, on what they could do? for affordable housing. But it's such a pressing issue. I think it's going to cause a lot of grief. I believe so, because you next thing you know, you're going to have a lot of homeless. And I don't know if Horry County or Conway has the resources to really address that issue on a bigger scale. I don't know. So.
Well, I think it's interesting that she said, they are looking into the homelessness and the affordable housing in the area. But, I think a question that we may want to ask if she's on a future broadcast, so that everybody will understand the role that the city actually plays in the housing situation. I think that we need to kind of, really dig into, the layers of this, because if it was just something that was so simple that, the mayor and city council could fix it with a few, swipes of a pen, it would happen. But obviously it's not that simple. And funding is probably an issue. Where does the funding come from in order to make sure that, affordable housing is developed and that, some of the issues or the challenges are addressed. She brought up a point about the fact that there hasn't been a housing project in decades. And, any of us growing up in the, I would say, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, or whatever, housing projects were a part of our upbringing, a part of our childhood. It's a part of the landscape of everything we know about our communities. And if you look around Conway, for example, you still have, your Huckabee Heights, you have your Darden Terrace,
Right.
You have, areas like that. But, and even what was known as Cherry Hill projects or is now EME Apartments. So again, even the language is changing. And, she even mentioned the fact that, basically what's affordable for one is not affordable to another when it comes down to these income-based housing developments. And so, just like this question that Eugene Bellamy, thank you for watching, that he poses, what partnerships are being developed between the city or a county to address the issue? How does this dynamic relationship work? That's an excellent question to ask so that, people will understand, at least people within the city limits who are in a position to vote for our candidates who may have some power to do some things, who have the energy to do some things, understanding what these partnerships are, how they're developed, and if they're in the process of being developed, it would be good to find out that information as we, move forward. But yeah, the cost of everything is just exorbitant. It's, through the roof. You go to a grocery store now and you buy 4 items and it's $40 for, the essentials, the bread, the milk, the eggs, that kind of thing. And it's gas. I think our average is around, maybe it's $3.49 a gallon or something like that. And there's no sign of true relief, unless some businesses decide, like there's a convenience store gas station enterprise that I know of. It's called Sheetz. And, Sheetz, during some of the holiday seasons have decided that they would lower gas prices so that, it would be affordable for people to travel, So, but I don't know how many, of those entities around our town are part of, like partnerships like, Eugene's talking about, or,
Right.
Really really have their finger on the pulse of the fact that, yes, we have a lot of transients who come through. It's a tourist area, but the locals have to live and survive, when even through the tourism seasons. And so, that part has, I think, a lot of layers to it.
You spoke of, and I just want to say this briefly. You spoke of the price of gas. Today, I bought gas at $3.05 a gallon over in Conway.
It's 305 in Conway.
Well, this must be something that was not normal, because every other place is like from 340, 335, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I took advantage of it. There's one International Boulevard. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a couple of, or there's one last segment that we definitely want to feature tonight, and Brother Edward, if you'll frame this up while I'm gearing up this particular portion of it. We started to go into some of the things that, or during your interview, you started to go into some things that were we could consider as more controversial issues in the community, things that were heavily debated and heavily contested, and really brought out the numbers at these city council meetings. Usually rooted in things that people are particularly passionate about or that they're linked to or whatever that happens. But these two issues were really two of the hot buttons, and if I'm not mistaken, even Mayor Blain-Bellamy said, they're probably the only two of the hottest two that she could think of in terms of her time as mayor. And so we're going to take a look at a little clip here that kind of goes into that. And so, Brother Edward, I'm going to pull it up here and just run it, and let's talk a little bit about this as well before we end the show.
I'd like to discuss with you, if you don't mind. So with our engineering in the background, we'll be right back. Just give us a few seconds. Oh wow! Welcome back. And that was a little break that was needed there, because the mayor here has given us all kinds of information, and sometimes some of it is priceless. Most of it is priceless, and we all need to know about these things. So now I'm just going to touch base on a couple more issues. One is the one that's been ongoing, and that is the Whittemore Elementary School. The not just the status of it, but what strategies have been in place, and I guess you can say it's the status of it. Okay, I have not been attending the city council meetings, but my understanding that it's been. Why don't you just go ahead and can you elaborate on it?
Oh,
okay.
I'll do the best I can.
Yeah.
So the city of Conway, and I haven't checked my notes lately. I won't say exact dates because I can't be certain. But for the last several years, the city has accepted ownership of the former Whittemore Elementary School property.
Yeah.
It was a gift from Horry County Schools. It's not atypical that they do that. And the city had plans to turn the property into a community center. Had a series of meetings. The community said what they wanted in that place, and in some they were thinking things like all of the things that came to mind were self-help, self-raising kinds of ventures. They talked about after-school programs, childcare, I can't think of the word, but allowing adults to finish high school, everything from cake decorating to straw bowl making to all kinds of things. It being a center for arts, for children. One of the things that I've talked a lot about is how well the city serves our youth relative to physical recreation, but how we sort of stop there. And there are children in our community, much like the former Barbara Jo Blain, who couldn't run, hit, throw, or catch. And as a result, never benefited much from physical programs, but might have done a lot better if I'd been given something relative to the arts. So that was the plan. There were delays based on some federal requirements when it came to the use of the money. There were storms that interfered with the integrity of the building. Things happened, and to this day, there's been nothing done to the property. In the interim, the property became a haven for people's use. I'll say we know that there was a contingency of people that apparently lived in the building. I'll give one quick example. Our police department would go out to check the building periodically, and there were times when the doors were barricaded from the inside. The police couldn't get in. So we know that there was activity inside. When we went inside, when we got inside, we were able to find that there were rooms that had been set up like bedrooms. This sounds like a joke, but it's real. Our building official walked into a particular classroom in that building, and this gentleman had a blow-up bed, and we laughed because he had matching linens on his bed. There was a chair or two probably found inside the building, and there was a coffee table made out of a cardboard box. And the building official and the gentleman who apparently was staying inside startled each other, and but it didn't turn into anything ugly. The person who had made a home out of that room told the city's building official, that he had a house, but he couldn't get along with his lady, and so he just chose to live in the building. At any rate, there's a tragic fire that happened most recently that destroyed the integrity of the building completely. What was still standing was razed by the city of Conway, and what sparked from that was a series of claims, as happens these days. When people generally don't know something, they'll make something up. And it was a misfortune, I believe, that so much doubt in city leadership and in city administration grew out of that. And I personally have been accused of setting fire to that building, as have a number of other people. I mean, there's nothing farther from the truth, but that's the kind of thing that happens. And you know, if you have a public position, I'm told you're supposed to always be ready for that sort of thing. I'll never be ready for that sort of thing, but it is something that has to be dealt with. So with lost hope from good thinking people in the community, a wariness that what offered some possibilities was now gone, a doubt that the city was on the up and up, all mushroomed into, and I don't know how widespread it is. I'll never know. That's not something I know how to measure. But there is a consortium of people who believe that by design that building was destroyed. And I assure everybody that that was not the case. At any rate, what the Whittemore Race Path Historical Society had been bringing to City Council as a desire and a plan to use what was standing as the place where you and I went to elementary school and turn it into that community building, to keep it reminiscent of a time gone by, a time when we were separated by segregation. But you know, the way that God works, that thing that was meant for bad to keep us out of our neighbors' schools actually turned out to be the greatest blessing of all, because our teachers were so intent on our learning and our growing and our producing, and that doesn't happen everywhere. So there is good reason to find a way to keep that history in place. There's been a good bit of criticism about the city being one of the 7 people who chose not to hand over 10 acres of pristine property to a group that had asked for that property, claiming that property because of the historical significance of it, of what happened there, the people it represented at the time it represented. And since the fire and at the point we are now, there is a group being organized to employ the best thought, the best wisdom, the best planning effort of a pretty broad group of people, people representing the city of Conway, the owner of the property, a strong contingency of people who are personally impacted by the loss, namely the adults today who were students at Whittemore Elementary School. They are being chosen from the Historic Society that I mentioned, the Whittemore Race Path Historic Society, and the Whittemore Alumni Association, along with others. So we're looking at making sure there's a banker, making sure there's some city staff, there's some city council people. There is somebody to look out for the interest of older people. And I spent some time earlier talking about how our community is aging, making sure that every contingency has a voice. And the goal of that is called the Whittemore Task Force. And the goal of that group is to see finally how our best thinking, our best identification of resources, our best laid plan for something that is practical, that is doable, that can satisfy the needs of various groups that sit on that property. Now, alongside that is, and I'm assuming you're going to ask this too, is the question of Whittemore Park Middle School. Whittemore Park Middle School is still doing business as a middle school, but a new facility is being built now. And while it was first believed that the school function would move to the new facility, like in a full year from now in fall 2024, the building process is ahead of itself, and there's a good chance that at the break of the semester, that during the Christmas holidays, that move might occur. The City of Conway has asked the school board to consider giving or gifting that property to the city as well. It is that would be an enormous opportunity. The very good news is the building itself that we think of as the school is huge, has potential for housing any number of organizations, has an auditorium, has these large spaces where people can meet, where they can perform, where people can gather. It has a huge cafeteria. The library space is huge.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The gymnasium that can be used today. And one of the most remarkable things about that building is there's a section of it that used to be a part of the original Whittemore High School. The very rear of that structure on the Rue Street side was actually a part of the old Whittemore High School.
Yeah.
And gives us yet another opportunity to restore, in fact, something that was part of that Jim Crow era, and
Right.
our histories and a part of our growth, and still sits ready to be used. That would change a lot of things.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
believe. And what I will ask of the committee that I spoke of earlier is that it look at this twofold. First, from the perspective that the city owns 10 acres and the annex of what is is a standing structure, the annex of what was Whittemore Elementary School, and develop and devise a plan for that property. But secondarily, that this group devise a plan for the combined campus if we were to be gifted that property.
Yeah.
Because I think that it's likely to me that the focus of indoor activity would shift towards what is now the middle school, where the building exists, where it's in pretty good shape, where with minimal upgrades it can be used either immediately or semi-immediately.
Right.
And using the property that was the middle school more for an appropriate memorabilia of the school, but however that might look, and there's opportunity for other things happening on that property. So I hope that over the next several months that what grows is trust and belief in each other, and that the work of this committee ends up with something that makes us all proud, that respectfully honors what was Whittemore Elementary School and what was Whittemore High School, and grow tremendously our opportunity to grow people in our community, me included. I just started a tap dance class this past week, and I know it sounds silly, but it's a stress reducer. And if I can do that either at the site of the old Whittemore Elementary School or at the existing Whittemore Park Middle School property, it would make me all the more proud.
Well, there's a strong word around in the community about the possibility, and I don't know if it's been really thought out through, but of a Whittemore museum, okay,
Yes.
on that property somewhere, because
Yes.
there's a lot of history around there.
Yes.
After all, Whittemore was a what they call AAA school.
That's right.
Okay.
So I'll tell you this, if I might interject this, I participated in one of the recent walkthroughs by the city of the Whittemore Park Middle structure, and just in passing, I saw boxes of, I'm thinking 1940s and 1950s photographs, large, well preserved photographs of football teams, of bands, of courts of Miss Whittemore, and all sorts of things. And but the group I was with was interested in seeing as much of the building as quickly as they could. So
yeah,
getting pulled along. But memorabilia exists sitting in that building, and many of us have things at home that we've maintained over the years. I think the opportunity for a museum, for a replica of some part of that structure, a monument. I mean, there are endless possibilities.
Yeah, I mean, it even was just photos. I mean, some athletes still, I still believe, have their trophies that they won. Were given basketball, football, stuff like that. It's just we're finding out that there's a bunch of stuff out there. So, maybe that could be explored. And I don't know what the economics behind it and what the feasibility of it. I'm sure that has a great bearing on it. But I think it needs to be explored. You don't. Sometimes you can't put a price on legacy. Sometimes,
And I think with this group, with the factions that I mentioned, the people to whom this is the most important, alongside, a banker, a baker, a candlestick maker, but people who know certain portions of what it takes to pull that kind of off to make it a reality.
Yeah,
is doable, and I think
well, I'm glad you think it's doable. Yeah. I'm certainly glad to hear that you think that it's doable. I'm sure the people, our viewers would be glad to hear that. That you think that it's doable, and because you could have been talking negative about it for just to be truthful, okay?
Of
I mean,
course.
yeah, right. Sometimes the truth hurts, you know,
Yes.
and truth hurts a lot when you just have to say what is reality and what can and what cannot be done. But I think that sends out a glimmer of hope and comfort when you say that, you know, things are doable, you know,
For other,
and those when you start using those words, I mean, that, you know, that's it's a form of hope there. Okay, you know.
absolutely. You spoke earlier about, we were talking about different issues, but about federal and state grants. There's money floating around for, certainly for historic preservation, but also for similar kinds of uh, acts, such as the one that we're talking about right now. There is an opportunity to make good of that.
I have to interrupt you for a second because we're getting some feedback from your area. So we're going to pause for a moment and come right back to our broadcast. Okay, just give us a few seconds here. There's feedback on your side. It's coming from your. Okay, so we're back. And we're welcome back to our current Mayor Barbara Blain-Bellamy. She put the Joe in there, so and she is running for re-election. She has some unfinished business, she says, and maybe some of that unfinished business can be impactful to our listeners so far. So we're gonna continue with her. And Mayor Bellamy, I just wanted to ask you a question about the Whittemore. That's the subject that we paused on. Okay, the Whittemore Park, I believe, and I don't want to prolong it for a long way. Structurally, from an engineering perspective, we have pretty sound structurally property there, don't we?
We do at the middle school.
Yeah.
Our preliminary assessment is that it is in better shape than we expected. Because I have heard complaints about that particular structure for at least 8 years. And it has been spoken of as being lesser than similar school structures around the county. I had a principal once tell me that if that building sat elsewhere, like in Carolina Forest, that it would just be unacceptable. So my expectation and that of a lot of other people was that there were some serious concerns. Now, the serious concern today is the massiveness of that building and what it takes if it's in really good shape to maintain it. And you know, every so many years you have to put a new roof on. Every years you're going to have to do something in the HVAC. Plumbing, those systems. It wouldn't be like me calling a plumber to my house.
Right. Yeah,
So,
that's true.
You know, we have to take all of that into consideration. But as John said, in answer to your question, we don't know anything that is causing us any alarm or any the kind of concern that would make us want to consider not accepting the building should the school board decide that it should be ours. As a matter of fact, we are we've said specifically to the board that we would very much like to be the recipient of that property, and probably by now have since asked again what is the status and when will you be able to tell us about a decision.
You know, sometimes, well, do you personally, and that's going to be my last issue on question on this. You see how the city can benefit economically from the community is a community-based building in terms, it's serving the community in terms of a place for activities, a place for that would eliminate people from having to take their activity all the way across the beach, stuff like that. Do you think that's a good substitute for that, or could be made into a good substitute, and it would be sustainable economically? And you think that the city can benefit tremendously or significantly from that happening?
I do. For example, Conway Medical Center has recently contracted with us to use space in our fitness center,
Right.
Specifically for I'm just losing a word here, for people who need physical therapy.
Right.
Because today, most opportunities to do such a thing mean that drive across the river, the Whittemore River, out to Singleton Ridge Road, and we believe it benefits our people directly. So when you look at an opportunity as large as the middle school is, not only might it house partial departments or perhaps a whole department of city staff, which would delay our need to put a lot of money in building a building. There might be opportunities to rent spaces to other entities. Our artisans, those people who are making things, definitely have a desire to have a place to work their wares, to store their goods. There are nonprofits galore. There are Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. I mean,
Absolutely.
What number of organizations could benefit from a facility right there in the heart of Conway? There's just one other consideration I want to mention, and it is one that I've said to city staff as I try to encourage them to see this as a plus. Our gaining ownership of that building, and that has to do with the 378 corridor itself.
Yeah.
There have been a lot of attempts on our part to beautify, if you will, 378. It is more important now than it ever was. There is a stretch of a very few miles in Marion County that stand in the way of 378 being a 4-lane road from Columbia to Conway. And more traffic comes through that way. That's fine. But what is not fine about that is that traffic is coming into a part of our community that isn't necessarily reflective of the people in Conway and the way people in Conway live. We've tried to work with the CDOT to do some median improvements. The streets aren't wide enough to do that. We won't get those things that they have in Mount Pleasant, where you have these beds of trees and flowers to beautify. The city has purchased a number of properties immediately near the Whittemore Park Middle School in the attempt that since house fronts and front yards are so very near the actual highway, and there's no space to do much of anything as properties come up on the tax rolls and such, we've gained ownership of several of them. We've purchased several of them so that over time we'll be able to design a way to beautify that corridor. We think that there's pride in the 378 corridor just like there is anywhere else in Conway, and there's no reason for it to continue to be the lesser side of town. If the city gets ownership of that property, the world can stand assured that the landscaping, the lighting, the parking will be state of the art. It will be beautiful. It will be very nicely maintained. It will be reflective of Conway. And with that in place, we think what that might do is also attract more commercialism of large rich. Now it's debatable who wants more commerce and who doesn't, but in the right right places, there certainly is room to have the right kind of commerce, to have jobs develop right there on the 378 corridor.
Yep.
And the hope and potential for those things is great.
Oh, wow. So just let me divert a little bit. The other issue, what that's, I'm not saying it was contentious, but from what I saw on the on the news, it was contentious, and that is the Pride plaque, or the your recognition of the plaque that you gave to someone regarding the Pride
Yes.
Day. I think that's what it was.
Nationally, the month of June is recognized as Pride Month.
Okay.
And, I was asked by an individual, I couldn't name that person, to issue what would be called a Pride Proclamation.
Yes.
Anybody who has seen the document, and I would read it to you if I had it sitting in front of me, spoke generally this way. It said that, excuse me, it said that in our community, our neighbors, our relatives, co-workers, friends, there are people among us who are part of what is known as the LGBTQ plus community. It said that these people make a meaningful contribution to our lives, and we should treat them like human beings, in so many words. I knew before I issued the proclamation that there are people who have some pretty strong feelings about specifically that group of people. And if you'll allow me to explain my action, I represent, as the mayor of Conway, everybody in Conway. The tall and the short, the affluent and the homeless, the blue and the purple, the rich and the poor. I mean, the list goes on and on. Sexual orientation being among them. I have never denied anybody a proclamation, ever. There were some standards in place before I became mayor. I remember hearing about somebody's family member turning 90 and being told that we write proclamations when a person turns 100. That was like
Right.
And my stance on that is, if somebody wants to celebrate a person's longevity, even at 90 instead of 100, if it's important to them, it's important to me. And it takes me all of 20 minutes to write a proclamation. We type them, we put it in a frame that costs $3 or $4. It just seems like a small matter when it comes to acknowledging the value of a person in our community, or a group in our community. I have never not done one, and I did it for this group. My only explanation for that is simple. It has to do with who I am. I don't mean to get all spiritual on you, but the bottom line is this. My upbringing required and still requires of me to love everybody, however they present themselves. I had a Sunday school teacher, Mrs. B.M. Johnson, at Cherry Hill Baptist Church. And every once in a while, I think Ms. Johnson made up her own parables. But one such parable she taught, I don't remember how old I was. I was a little girl. But she said that God sends Jesus back to earth periodically. And she said, children, Jesus won't be wearing a robe and sandals. And he won't be wearing a suit and tie. She said, sometimes Jesus might be a little bit dirty. He might be a little bit smelly. He might be a little bit obnoxious. He might be the person that you would care not to sit next to. But she said, be careful how you treat that person. It could be Jesus in disguise. Yeah, I grew up believing that my responsibility to my God is treat everybody well. And that's what I felt I was doing by issuing that proclamation. And so when I was pretty seriously challenged about having done so, one of the comments made to me by a minister in this community was, you act like you're not ashamed of what you did. You act like you do it again. And I would have to say publicly that I would do that over and over again. That speaks to who I am. I promised God that I would talk to Him about my decisions, that I'd seek His guidance, and that I would always do what I believed was the right thing for everybody, and do that every time. So, that still sits out there to haunt me in the eyes of a lot of people. And I can't concern myself. I can't spend a lot of time and worry on what somebody else thinks about that act. I believe that my Father is pleased with what I did. And I think that sums it up.
You're on mute, Brother Edward.
So really, that summed it up, as she said. Okay, we're running a lot over time, and
We are, but we can't get out. We can't close without you making some comments about the last two topics. With your thoughts on Whittemore, and then your thoughts on the proclamation.
I do want to give my thoughts without being partisan, for lack of a better word. And so I'll say this about Whittemore Elementary School and Whittemore Park. I think from what she said, that there's a task force, and I'll go from there. Start from there. There's a task force or task group has been created. Now, this is something I believe in keeping up with that. Something I believe that starts a new, almost a whole new chapter. Because I thought that at one point that the city had made up its mind, not to go forth with having anybody else to take over the land and with the city, but the city. So now that this is a new chapter that's been brought in, and that is the introduction of, or the establishment of a task force by the Conway City Council with the mayor's backing. I think that presents a whole new circle of discussions that hopefully would be productive, and we can come to some resolution that could that would satisfy all parties for that situation of Whittemore Elementary School and Whittemore Park. Regarding the proclamation that was given, I think she explained it extremely well. As part of her duties, she looked at everybody just a citizen, and when they deserve a proclamation, it's her duty to do that because she's representing everybody. So that's all I'll have to say on that. I mean, without acting, without saying something that's in favor of or not in favor of. So.
Well, I think that, one thing that can be said about the span of this interview is that we have really received a great overview of what it means to be mayor, what it means to run a city, what it means to work for your constituents, what it means to try to govern on behalf of everyone without losing yourself. And also to try to govern on behalf of everyone without leaning, more to the left or right or whatever. It really is a balancing act for any candidate. Yeah. And, I think that when it comes down to the Whittemore property situation, the only thing that I will say about it is that as long as the property serves the community and no underlying interests or agendas, then I would be someone who would say, yes, go forward. But I think that, this task force will be charged with making sure that they're looking at all points of feasibility before, finally deciding on what would be done with the property. And I think it also is the type of property that could evolve over time. And it doesn't, just because the task force comes together and says, here's what we think we should do now, it doesn't mean that that is the only thing that they will ever do with that particular property.
Right.
And regardless of how many task force you pull together, who you put on the task force, it's still going to be a situation where you're not going to please everybody. So those persons who are on the task force are going to just have to understand that it's not about them. It's about the community at large. And if they're, being brought to the table to represent the diversity in our community, then, everyone, including those elected officials who would be a part of it, should always take those things into consideration. As far as the Pride Proclamation, hey, Mayor Blain-Bellamy stood on her beliefs, her morals, her ethics, just like Janet Lawrence Patton says in the comments. And I think that, just like the story that the mayor told, we have to be careful how we present ourselves when we're talking about standing for a particular cause or not. And so there's always going to be those things that will be major points of friction in a community. And I think that, that's what makes politics so tough. It's what makes governing communities and governing processes, procedures, and assets tough, because we always have to remember that diversity, equity, and inclusion are a part of it. And more importantly, that, we, the people, are electing these officials to take a stand for things, to be an advocate for things. And sometimes it's not going to be everything. So, I wish all the candidates luck. I could never enter the political arena because, the way my mouth and my thoughts are set up, I would probably be that person who would, speak my mind, especially in terms of, things that are out of order, that, as we say, are not decent and in order. And you know what? Sometimes we need those kinds of people, in government places and spaces. I think that this was a good interview, Brother Edward. I apologize to our listening audience for the audio difficulties that we had. Somehow it kicked in at the moment when we started talking about more local issues, or issues that we could, kind of harness into some really, smaller pockets that impact special groups. But I think the point was still clear if you could listen beyond the audio, that, there's a lot of work to do in Conway. And the bottom line is everyone has a right to vote when the time comes for the candidate of your choice. And we actually welcome any candidate to come on, whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, or whatever, to state your platform, to talk about what you plan to do for the people, paid political advertising or broadcast or whatever you want to call it. We're nonpartisan, but we do have a show where we are charged with providing commentary that connects the dots for people, especially as the host of the show and taking on this charge to create a show surrounding the issue. So I really appreciate everyone who stuck around to listen tonight. That video or this broadcast will be available in its entirety, of course, as always, on our YouTube page, and I will post it to our website. But we also have the entire interview with the mayor, and we can make that available as well on the website if anyone, just in case you want to see it in its entirety, because we couldn't really roll it in its entirety tonight. So thank you all.
April, let me interject. I wanted to comment on one of the comments that you didn't show, but that was okay.
Which comment is it?
Janet Patton regarding the need to have more people in at the city council. I think that's what she was implying.
I don't see that one. I see the affordable housing, and then no, I don't see that comment.
Well, she mentioned, things to do when, I guess.
Yeah, I'm looking for it so I can put it on the screen.
Yeah. Oh man, I thought she mentioned something about the need for more attendance at the city council meetings, and I was going
to. Okay. Eugene says it's above the affordable housing. Here it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Great job giving an overview, especially highlighting the progress being made in Conway. Unless you attend city council meetings, you will not know about or understand this information being shared.
Yeah, I wanted to say to her that well, thanks for the comment, but that I do understand now that the number of attendees at the city council has been increasing, and representatives of our community all around in the Whittemore area that haven't been attending in the past. I think things have changed dramatically from the last one I saw, anyway, and from the words I've gotten from people. You know, they're making their point to have at least 5 or 6 or 7. You know, so and that's good. My understanding is that has never happened before in Conway. To really, I mean, on a periodic basis, every time they have a meeting. Okay, so they're making a point, and that's good. If that can be kept up, I think great strides can be made, and the city will listen. You know.
But we have to attend for everything.
Yeah, everything.
Not just the 1 or 2 things that make the hair stand up on our arms. We need to attend for everything.
And that's what I'm getting. That's the point I'm trying to make. Yeah, even with no contentious issues, people they're attending, and you know, I'm finding out that they're on their way down. They're going to the city council meeting. That's important. Presence is important. So I want to applaud all those who did that, and continue to do that. So, until next week, what do you think? It won't be until 8:45 next week, though. I can guarantee.
We certainly will not, Brother Edward. We're going to have to talk about this after the show. But we will be back next week at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
Our special guest will be Dexter Mitchell, and he will talk about the risk factors that are involved in the restaurant industry when you are dealing with service to customers, and the launch of his new business. It's a consulting company that actually works with small business owners who are in the service industry, customer service, restaurant safety, all of that. Dexter will be here. He's also a guest columnist in the World Community Magazine. So should be great information if you are a restaurant owner or you're in the service industry and want to learn how to step up your customer service game. You want to tune in next Tuesday at 7 p.m.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right, Dexter. We're waiting on you.
Exactly. He's probably waiting on us, but it's going to be a great show, I guarantee you.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And again, thank you all for watching tonight. We really do appreciate it, and we hope that you have a good rest of the week. Stay safe. COVID numbers on the rise. Right. So make sure that you are vigilant, and we do appreciate your support. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. See you next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your host Edward McQueen and April Garner.